What is going on YouTube and Spotify? This is the Just BSN podcast, and today, episode 38. We are almost at 40 episodes already. We're getting close, Andrew. We're getting close.
It's getting closer,
Uh,
man.
it's been flying by, but we do have a good bit of Browns talk to discuss today. Obviously, minicamp just ended today, so got a lot to discuss about that. Some clips that we heard, things going on right now, with the team, and then we got some more sports news, some Guardians news, and even some Cavs news coming up. So Andrew, how are we feeling today? How are we doing this week overall?
I mean, overall, man, it's been a good week. The sun's been shining. Everything's been fine and dandy. So the weather's been
I was about to
looking really
say
good.
the weather's been great here as of
Yeah,
late. We've been avoiding some of the rain, and it's been cooler. It hasn't been like super hot, but we're getting ready to get some heat here soon, I think.
yeah.
So yeah, Ohio's been doing what Ohio does around this time of the year, where it's like, oh man, it almost feels like fall, and then you get a night where it's like 93 degrees the whole day, and you're like, oh, here we go. Ohio summers are back, so they're coming.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, Browns mini camp just ended today, I do believe, and yeah, a lot of things going on right now, and I think the biggest story at the current moment is no Amari Cooper there this week. And this was mandatory mini camp, so he's probably going to get fined. But it sounds like he is looking to get a extension on his deal because he does have one more year left on this deal. And I assume the Browns have been in somewhat of a discussion with him about this, or maybe they've at least mentioned it. So I understand with the Jerry Judy move, maybe if this affected that, but you got to think that the Browns are still trying to look to extend him. What do you think's going on right now? Do you think it's worth extending him long term, or are you going to look for more like a 2 or 3 year deal for him after all this?
I mean, he's getting up there in age now. He is now what 30 years old, 31 years old now.
Yeah.
So he's getting a little bit older. He's currently. I'm trying to find it because I actually have his shit up to be honest. He is 29 and he'll be 30 in literally 4 days. Um, so he's gonna be 30 by the middle of next week. So I guess it depends on what the Browns want from Amari Cooper and kind
Yeah.
of what Amari Cooper wants for himself.
Yes.
I don't think it's gonna be anything more than 4 years if he does get a quote unquote big extension. I think four would be the max. But you already have young guys. You have Elijah Moore, you have Jerry Judy, Cedric Tillman. Again, guys we have talked about a lot, David Bell. And those guys are a lot younger and they're probably going to be getting ready to overtake Amari Cooper here soon enough. Obviously, you still have a young tight end and David Njoku. So it's nothing against Amari. I think they're gonna at least give him at most three
Hmm.
if they do extend him. I think three is the most because then what's gonna happen after that? He's gonna have a Jarvis Landry type career after that, where he's just gonna kind of bounce from team to team for the next 3 or so years afterwards when he's 34, 35, 36, 30.
Yeah.
So the Browns are gonna try and squeeze as much as they can out of him for the next at least three, maybe again the most 4 years, and then he's either going to retire or he's just going to kind of go play another couple of years after and just bounce from kind of team to team, kind of like what OBJ is doing right now, where he's just kind of 1 year deals with random teams and just trying to
And
get some football in. And so I think 3 to 4 is a solid number. I don't see anything past four, especially
no.
to when you just got Jerry Judy on a big time deal, and if Elijah Moore has a good year or two, you can give him a good time deal, big time deal as well. So
Yeah.
no need to give him an insane contract like the Cowboys did or like the Raiders did. Just give him something generic, 4 years, a decent number that he'll like, and just move on.
Yeah. I mean, because look, Amari Cooper has put up his two best years in the league with us overall.
Mm-hmm.
Besides one year he had with Cowboys, which he had like 1,189 yards receiving that year. and that was in 2019. But Browns the last 2 years, he's had 1160 and 1250 last year. So he's still putting up big numbers. Don't get us wrong, and he's still a
Hmm.
very good wide receiver one. Like he is a legit wide receiver one, and I think you need that with him
Yeah.
for at least the next 2 to 3 years. At 29 years old, turning 30 this year, you can't think he is going to be playing football past 33 or 34 anyway,
Hmm.
especially at his position. So I'm assuming that's what the Browns are going to want to look to do, and especially the way that we know Barry and the way he is, the way he structures deals. Um, I just don't see them signing him super long term. And I know he wants to get paid because he's had two of his best years. But it's also one of those cases where it's like we're also at least equipped enough to where if we can't keep him after this year, we're going to be just fine because not only that, we're going to have a first round pick again.
Yeah.
Now that the Watson trade is finally diminished and over with in terms of the picks. So it's going to be interesting. And, when we first got Jerry Judy, I was like, hey, if Cooper does leave or if they have to move on from Coop, they know they have Jerry Judy right there. Jerry Judy has been, you know, at least wide receiver two, but he's been wide receiver one in Denver for a while. So he's gotten that attention before. But I think him being wide receiver two is where he's at the best. And that's why I do still think you got to try to keep Coop. The money is going to be, I think, the biggest issue. It's going to be a matter of how much money is this dude asking for versus how much are the Browns willing to give up, especially with everything that we have currently loaded on players at this moment. We have Garrett on still a big deal. We have Ford on a big deal. You have Teller on a big deal. You have Walt Watson obviously on a huge deal. Jerry Judy's deal is there, but it's not quite as big. And then you have other guys in this room that are making a lot of money. Petonio's making a lot of money. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting how this falls. I just hope that he doesn't hold out for the entire year until we get him a deal. I hope he doesn't pull like a Lamb, because right now CD Lamb holding out, he's not going anywhere. Like he's gonna try to get as big of a deal as he can, and honestly, as he should, because he put up a monster year last year, and he's been a you know wide receiver one since Amari left. So guys like that are going to demand more money, especially with their age. They're going to use that as a factor.
Hmm.
But Coop is in a weird position because of his age, and so you got to sort of determine that. And the Browns, I'm sure, are thinking about every possible outcome, just like they always do. So I just hope it doesn't drag out too long. I hope it doesn't get nasty at all. And if they don't come to a deal by the end of camp, I hope he at least still plays and say, hey, we will come back to this at the end of the year after you've had another season under your belt. Because if we have to deal with an injury with you after signing you up for 3 years, that's where they're going to be like, well, shoot, we should have waited. And so I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. Unless the Browns are totally comfortable with throwing money at him, then fine. But I just don't see it, especially with Jerry Judy now. So it's going to be an interesting summer. I didn't really expect him to be the one that holds out, but it doesn't really surprise me either because at the end of the day, the dude still wants to get paid. He's had two of the best years of his career so far. He, at least deserves some sort of pay raise or some sort of pay increase. So I get that.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. And I truly believe too, like a lot of these like holdouts have nothing to do with like, oh, he wants to be like traded and stuff like that. A lot of these holdouts are usually just people who just want to be able to breathe because they have a contract guaranteed. They know how long they're going to be here in the city. They know how much they're going to be making. It's just that financial and like that security, knowing like, okay, I have a contract, and he doesn't have to worry about all season going, am I going to get a contract? Am I going to get signed? Am I going to get paid? Like, what's going to happen?
Right.
Because a lot of these guys, they have insurance to worry about, health insurance to worry about. If they have kids, they have their insurance to worry about. So it's not so much like holding out because of like God, this team sucks ass, bro. I want to get traded and stuff like that, so I'm just gonna hold out. Not like T Higgins style hold out where where he wants to
Right.
get the fuck off the Bengals, but he's holding out where so much, and I feel like a lot of these holdouts have to do with just security reasons, knowing that they don't have to go into the season worried about if they're gonna get contracts or if the team's gonna trade them in the middle of the season. So it's almost like a security blanket. Like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
under contract. I got signed to an extra 3-4 years. I'm making this much money. I can breathe. I can go back to mini camp, which mini camp actually ended today. Today was the last day for
Yep.
mandatory mini camp. So he can, if he gets that contract, he can breathe. He can go into preseason now relaxed. And, if he does get hurt, he knows he has that security behind him that he can get help and recover and stuff like that. He doesn't have to be like, oh my God, like, is this it for me on the Browns? Like,
Yeah.
am I going to get traded? Like, is this,
Right.
it's just a mental security for these players. So it's
Yeah.
not so much the team sucks or he doesn't want to be here. It's just mental security, basically.
Right. And you also have to think too. Every year, the market for these guys changes.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Jetta just changed the market for wide receivers again
Big
after
bag.
it was just changed a year or two ago when Christian Kirk got like 4 years, 80 million. It didn't
Yeah.
deserve even half of it. It's
Not even
it's a
close.
weird market right now. And even quarterbacks right now. Trevor Lawrence, his contract
Just got
today.
paid today. Yeah.
He got paid 55 million a year on this deal, and I don't love that deal, but not my quarterback, not my problem. Deshaun's our problem, and he's still a lot of money, but it's only because it's fully guaranteed that makes this contract still bad. But in terms of the overall, like, hey, can we win with Watson versus can you win with Lawrence? I think there's a bigger difference there, and I think that's what really matters. So, again, the market changes all of the time. So of course Cooper now sees that and goes, hey, I'm not asking for Jay Jetta money, but I am asking for a little bit more. And I'm just trying to ask for security because I don't want to be traded or I don't want to leave because I like I like this team, and it's a good problem to have. Like, it really is. It's a good problem to have when you have guys that want to be here. So I'm cool with it, but other guys like Elijah Moore. I'm seeing a lot of him in a lot of the preseason camp clips right now. He seems to be Watson's like go-to dude right now. He's catching a lot of balls with him. I'm seeing Tillman a lot. I see Chief a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
Different guys are still going to step up this year, and I expect more out of guys like Elijah Moore and out of Chief after having a Pro Bowl year. You know, he's going to have another big year in my opinion, and I think it's going to help with Watson fully healthy, fully into this new offense. Sky really is still the limit for this team, even if you somehow cannot keep Cooper, which I just don't see a world where that's possible. But yeah, there's just too much going for this team right now to really like truly bring us down, I think.
Yeah, and to be fair too, Amari Cooper is still on his Dallas Cowboy five
Yeah.
year, $100 million contract, which the Browns ended up voiding the last 2 years. So this is technically his last year of the deal, and so he's not gonna get a Justin Jefferson 4 year, $150 million contract. Like, that's not gonna happen. He's gonna that's gonna be a little bit lower. He's probably gonna stay around maybe the 80 million mark, I would assume, because again, he's turning 30 in 4 days.
Yeah.
So he's probably gonna get a 3-4 year, maybe like 70-80 million. He's not gonna get a Jay Jettas or like a Jamar Chase 4 or 5 year, 150 mil, 160 million
Yeah.
dollar kind of contract. Now he did get the bag from Dallas. He got a 5 year, 100 mil. For some reason, Dallas sold him for pennies, which is like a fifth and a sixth round pick, which is
Yeah.
insane. And then he comes here. The Browns avoid the last 2 years of the deal just to make the contract a little bit cheaper to afford him. And I'm sure they're gonna give him a nice contract. I guarantee you they're talking now and trying to see where his head's at, what he wants, and see if the Browns can. Because again, the Browns are gonna make moves regardless. Because again, we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do with Jack Conklin, Jed Wills. some of these guys, obviously, they're going to restructure the contracts of a few of these people. They're
Yeah.
still going to restructure Deshaun's contract down. Um, you still have to worry about paying Myles Garrett. You still have to worry about a couple of these guys that you do want to re-sign, and so they're going to factor the vast majority of that to what Amari Cooper wants and be like, listen, we still got to get Miles, Chubb, we still got to get a lot of these guys, and we can't give you maybe a big bag, but we can give you something that's affordable and that you like for the next few years, and we can thank you for your services, and you can be happy, retire, go maybe play another 2 years of football elsewhere, or
Right.
maybe if you want to take a vet minimum with us and stay another year or two and take a vet minimum, we'll give you that too, and you can just.
Right.
So there's things in the works that could be done.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's gonna be any unhappy. I mean, he's a genuine guy, so it's not like he's gonna be very unreasonable. He's not gonna be a dickhead like a T Higgins and be like, I deserve this Jay
This,
Jettis
yeah.
contract. Like I deserve the 4.5, or I deserve the 4 year, 5 year, 140, $150 million. Like, no, you don't. You're
No.
mid-level receiver. You're good, but you're not top quality. Like, you're gonna get 4 years of barely 100 mil. Get your ass calm the fuck down. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, again, Mari Cooper's not unreasonable. He'll settle for something that him and the Browns could easily agree on, and we'll have him for the next few years, and we'll see what happens after that. If he wants to stay for a vet minimum and retire,
Yeah.
fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the one good thing to talk about though in camp, to get on more of the positive side, is it seems like every day Watson is getting a little more work. Like the
Mm-hmm.
workload is getting more and more increased, and that's good to see. And that seems pretty standard. Like that seems like that's how this was gonna go. So I'm definitely excited to see him getting to throw the ball a little more downfield. He's just doing more throwing. That's good. Like seeing him doing all that is exactly what we want to see. What have you like so far out of not only what you've seen from him, but also heard from him? Because I know he talked. I think earlier this week. I know we've heard from Coach a few times. So, what do you liking from people that have been talking and just seeing what we've seen from him so far?
I mean, it's all been pretty good things. I mean, the players have been talking up about him. They've been hyping him up. Again, Jameis Winston has been doing a lot of hyping up of Deshaun. I
Because
mean,
Winston's the goat when it comes to
oh
that.
god, yeah. Oh god, yeah. But even the receivers too. The receivers are
Yeah.
definitely hyping him up and saying like he's looking better each and every day. Um, Before we started the podcast, Mary Kate Cabot posted a video of a deep ball he had to Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
Again, he's probably living on throwing deep balls so that way he doesn't overwork his shoulder. But he did throw a good one. Of course, Elijah Moore dropped it. So it wasn't so much of a bad pass from Deshaun. It was just a drop pass from Elijah Moore,
Yeah.
which that's what minicamp is for. You work on things like that. Now it was a little overextended, but I mean it hit Moore right in the fingertips. Could have hauled it in. So it looked like a decent throw. His mechanics look pretty good. So I mean I've seen nothing but good things, and hopefully we'll see more awesome videos during the summer, and getting towards August when we get back into the preseason and you start seeing him throwing more and more and getting closer to the start of the season.
And yeah, I mean, I think any clip that I've seen of him throwing, and I know I said this I think last week, but his throwing motion and everything, his footwork, everything looks better.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever he's been doing in the offseason has helped, but also whatever Ken Dorsey uh, is doing with him, I think is helping him tremendously as well. And I just think the combination of everything going right now, I think everything under Ken Dorsey's offense is just going to fit this team so much better. And it's not to say that Stefanski wasn't good at play calling. Obviously, he was.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just sometimes you just gotta understand and sort of read the room and be like, hey, it's not that I am a bad play caller or anything. It's just I think we can get more out of doing something different. So let's bring in somebody that will do something different that will ultimately help this team, and it's going to. Like, keeping Watson in a shotgun four unit formation about 80% of the time, it's going to do you wonders.
Hmm.
It's going to keep him in a much better spot. It's going to keep him from uh, being more loose and being able to scramble faster and quicker when when he needs to, or move on the run to make and
Yeah.
create different passes. That's what he does best. I mean, that's what he did at Clemson. That's what he did in Houston. Sure, sometimes it's gonna get his ass hurt, but as long as he's smart with it, he shouldn't get hurt like that again.
No,
So
not at all.
and our O line is in a much better spot again this year. Thank God. Hopefully, we can stay healthy this year. I think that's the biggest question mark
Hmm.
is who's going to end up staying healthy and who's going to end up getting hurt again. If Jed Wills gets hurt again, he's going to be in a rough spot, especially
Yeah.
playing on his final year and stuff. Like, he's going to be in a tough spot. Conklin and Jones, those two guys were hurt last year, but Jones has youth on his side. Conklin does not.
Yeah.
So that's what I am going to look at right now throughout the rest of the preseason and just throughout the rest of camps is let's see where some of these other guys are, because everybody's going to be all eyes on Watson, all eyes on Chubb, but we still got to worry about Wills and Conklin and Jones and Ward and Miles. Miles apparently had a little bit of a hammy going on today. I don't think it was very serious. I think they were just being very
Hmm. Precautionary.
precautionary. I can't fucking say it today. Um, every year though, it seems like Miles has some sort of hamstring or thigh thing going on, so it doesn't really concern me that much. But it is always something that we hear, out of Miles every year, and I don't know if it's just designed to keep him from over exerting himself during camps or what. I don't know what it is, but every year you're always hearing something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the notification I sent you on Twitter, but after Deshaun Watson had that drop ball to Elijah Moore, he threw another 50-yard pass to Jalen Darden, and it was
oh
just
yeah, I saw
spot
that.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yes, just perfection. Like
yeah.
like you said, everything's looking pretty crisp from Deshaun Watson. Things are
Mm-hmm.
looking good, and I mean, if he's making throws like that during the season, I mean,
Yeah,
my
sky's the
goodness, we're
limit.
in a good place.
And and especially when you're gonna have guys, again, I think Tillman is gonna have a much better year this year. It
A
sounds
hundred
like
percent.
he's in a much better spot. It sounds like after having a year under his belt, he's gonna be comfortable. And I'm telling you what, man, if Tillman can be a solid wide receiver four for us, he could turn into a solid wide receiver two for us in the
Hmm.
next year or two. And that's what I'm hopefully banking on is if you really do lose Cooper, you still have a big body kid in Tillman. You have Judy, who's still about 6'1", and then you still have Moore. And if you like Moore, keep Moore. But if not, you either continue to look for slot guys to just fill the spot, or you go draft one and you just continue to keep drafting guys until you find these guys. And it's just like what we've been doing at corner the last few years. We found good corners out of quality picks in the second, third, fourth round, and guys are always continuing to step up. That's why you don't need a guy like Ward on this team, or you don't
Yeah.
need Newsom. You were able to get rid of one of those guys, and you still have three solid corners right there, and you have an insane backfield. Um, at safety, you have three guys who are all starters who can play anywhere on the field, really. And then you have a young guy to back them up in Hickman, who I think can have another solid year. Like, guys are going to continue to step up, and I'm really also excited to see what Njoku can do with Watson, because he had a
Yeah.
lot of success with Flacco, and I have to think that Watson saw all of that and said, "Okay, that's what I have to do with him. Like, that's what I need to do in order to feed him." And Njoku's going to be a huge part of this team still, regardless if we're still in a shotgun or if we're under center. Njoku is always going to be a significant part of this team, just like Chubb will.
Yeah.
But you have to continue to surround yourself around going inside to out. And
Yeah.
Njoku starts right there.
Yeah, no, and the thing is too, and Joku would drive people 20 yards like he did against the Ravens, where he's dragging three dudes 10, 15 yards downfield. And, you know, Joe Flacco, again, he's an experienced veteran. He's been playing in the league for a dozen plus years, obviously. So he knows when to go to your tight end on dump off and when to, throw deep and do all those things. And, you know, what was nice was that Joe Flacco's basically number one read was basically David Njoku. That was his go-to read. Or if it wasn't, and he looked downfield for Amari Cooper, his next read was David Njoku down in the flats or up the middle of the field because, again, it's an insurance pass. You're guaranteed a decent amount of yardage because he can catch and run. He can get a couple defenders to miss. He can shrug off of tackles. Oh my god, I can't talk either. He can shrug off of tackles and no, I mean, like you said, Deshaun Watson's gonna find a lot of use in David Njoku this season, and like you said, it's even in shotgun formation. There's gonna be opportunities where Deshaun's first read is Amari Cooper, then probably Elijah Moore, and then quickly when you don't realize, you can go to a wheel route with Njoku or out in the flats or, just up the middle. David Njoku's right there, and he's waiting for that ball, and he can give you some yardage. So David Njoku is definitely going to be a hot piece this year, and I'm excited to see what Deshaun does with him. And I'm sure that's going to be to be thorough, I guess that's probably going to be in a playbook a lot too. Is a lot of Njoku type of plays where if there's nothing downfield, Njoku's the go-to, or there might be plays designated for Njoku. So we don't know what the hell they're cooking up on that offense, but it's definitely going to be a sight to see for sure. And I definitely can't wait because even with Nick Chubb and shotgun formation, he's still so fucking deadly on the run. You got Deshaun Watson back in his comfort zone, and I think that's the nice thing too is, don't get me wrong. I think Kevin Stefanski is a fantastic, a fantastic coach, a play caller, and knows how to run an offense. But there's a reason why he brought in Ken Dorsey, and it's because he knows guys like Deshaun Watson. He knows how to run offenses with guys like a Josh Allen, a Deshaun Watson,
Right.
Guys who can run the football, guys who can throw deep, guys who can just bail themselves out when they need to. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw the playbook almost look exactly like the Buffalo Bills playbook with Josh Allen.
Oh yeah.
And with how Dawson Knox was in Buffalo, and now Dalton Kincaid down in Buffalo, they had a lot of plays themselves in that playbook where Josh Allen went to Kincaid quite a bit last season.
Yeah, he was
and
great.
Kincaid was a baller, man. He was a stud, and I'm sure you're gonna see those same type of plays with David Njoku, where they're gonna go to the outside, let David Njoku just bully a couple people, get some yardage, and I think David Njoku is probably your number one primary target in the red zone.
Oh, he has to be at 6'5", having that
The highest
just
vert,
crazy for vertical that you can possibly think of. Like,
I think he has the highest vert in the combine.
I mean, yeah, he might. I mean, the dude is a freakish athlete, and it's so hard to not feed the ball to him, especially in the red zone, because all you have to do is throw it a little bit higher than him, and nobody else is going to catch it but him. And it's just a matter of how you throw it. Because that was the thing with Bake, is Bake would have him, but Bake would throw it too hard. Yeah, he would overthrow it, as in throw it really fucking hard, and it would just zip past him. Where it's I think Watson doesn't have quite of a zippy arm like that. And again, the throwing motion looks a lot more smoother and a lot more crisp than it did the last 2 years.
I think
that's what I'm excited about.
I think the one thing that I like Deshaun more than Baker is that Deshaun has more touch to his throws. Where Baker kind of zips it. Baker reminds me a lot of Derek Anderson, where he zips the ball, throws it 100 miles an hour. But it's dude, I'm 5 yards ahead of you. You don't need to fucking blow my head off. I get it. You want to get it there, but there's no need to kill me in the process too. Like,
Yeah.
just put the ball right here. I will jump up and grab it. And you notice that again with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco has that touch, and again, there's times in the red zone where Joe Flacco just softly throw it to David Njoku and get it to where only he can get it, and that's all you got to do. Man, don't get me wrong, I love Baker, but my God, dude, you don't need to throw it 200 miles per hour at someone's fucking skull and kill
Yeah.
someone. Like, no wonder like the Browns at that time couldn't catch the ball and they had hand injuries because he's fucking rifling it at them and he's breaking their fucking hands. Like, dude,
Yeah.
stop! I'm trying to catch the fucking ball. Like,
Right.
have a little bit of touch. You know, you need to throw fastballs out here. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I mean, and one other thing that I do want to touch on before we move on, a lot of the sound bites from a lot of the players about Dorsey's offense have, like, especially Chief, was saying that his offense is juicy, like it's spicy,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me excited because Kevin Stefanski's offense was a little more mellow. It was a little more smoother. It was a little more like methodical. I think
Yeah.
Dorsey is going to come up with some fun shit. I think that it's going to leave a lot of improvisation, and I think that is going to tailor to Watson a lot better than Stefanski's like X's and O's, like this is where you need to be sort of offense. And I don't always think that's a bad thing, but when you have a scrambler like Watson, sometimes you got to give him the freedom to just make his own read and make the play, and not necessarily be forced to look one way or another. Just tell him, hey, go with your vision, go with your eyes, trust yourself. And I was even hearing, or earlier, I think it was either this week or last week, Watson was calling his own plays at one point. Like they were just doing that in
Yeah.
practice. Like that's cool. Give him some range, but hey, call us 5 plays right now. Just go with it. And if you can build that trust with Watson, this team could be so gross because then you're feeling off of the players' feel of the game, what they're
Mm-hmm.
seeing as a mismatch on the field instead of what they're seeing above the field. It's different, and that could play a huge part in Ken Dorsey's new offense that he's going to bring here. And I just think the guys have just liked it because it's fresh, it's different, and I think Stefanski is actually being like, all right, this is gonna work out. Like this is gonna be fine. There's nothing for me to worry about. He's leaning on Vrabel and stuff. This team is just they're equipped, man. They're ready to compete. They really are. And so it's up to these guys to go out and win these games every week. They're gonna have some tough ass games this year. They got to come out and prove it. But they have the player base. They have the coaches. As we've said for the last few weeks now, this is a team ready to win right now.
Yeah. Yeah. They're definitely ready to win, and I'm kind of glad the national media is kind of looking down upon us because I kind of like that because it keeps the players more like in line. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I've seen rankings where a lot of people have the Browns again finishing dead last in the AFC North. Like, oh, they might finish like 9-8 or 10-7, but that's as good as they're gonna get. And they have the Steelers going like 12 wins, and the Bengals like 12 wins, and the Ravens like 13. And it's like, did they just forget what the Browns did with 5 different QBs last year,
Yeah.
winning 11 games? And
Why do you think Stefanski won Coach of the Year?
yeah, like 90% of the roster was fucking injured, and we're playing almost the entire season with backups at this point.
Yeah.
Like, do you really think that with 11 wins, with I think it was like 20% of the roster just down and out?
Yeah, it was like over 20% of the starting roster.
Yeah, which is bizarre to even finish with 11 wins. And I mean, yeah, it was gonna hit you in the playoffs, and you're gonna feel that in the playoffs. Like, of course, it's gonna kill you, but with a healthy team, I don't know why people are writing us off with 9 or 10 wins. This is easily, I would say, a 12-win team, if
Yeah.
not 12, close to 13 wins. And you start off the season favorable, a lot of home games to start the year. Easy opponents to get the ball rolling. So it's not like your hardest opponents are the last 4 or 5 games when you play the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers,
Chiefs,
the
yeah,
Chiefs, the Dolphins. And again, those are all in end of November, December games too.
yeah.
So playing the Dolphins might not be as hard as people think it is.
No, no, because it'll be at the end of December and it'll be in Cleveland. Tua will
Yeah.
have a rough game that day. I can guarantee that.
And we're praying to God it's like 2 feet of snow, so his ass can't run the football and like he can't do anything.
Right.
His only, and the thing is, it's gonna be like the Chiefs game where his only thing is finding Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and when it's snowing like that, again, like in the Chiefs playoff game, when it's snowing like that, he struggles and he can't get the ball off. He can't make the throws. He's too cold. He can't adjust, and he was sacked quite a bit.
Yeah.
And what are the Browns known for? The sacking the fucking quarterback.
Well, yeah, it's because Miami has a horrible, O
Oh
line, but
my,
also you got to think too, the Browns have a better defensive backfield than the Chiefs did last year. Like Snead was their
yeah,
best player, and Snead's gone. He
yeah,
he's in freaking Tennessee right now.
yeah.
So, you know, the Chiefs aren't going to be as hard as they were last year.
No, and the thing,
Offensively, they will, but that's
offensively,
because they have
yeah.
Mahomes and
And they have,
Kelsey.
yeah, they have that, and that's it. They have Mahomes and Kelsey, and well, they did have Rashi Rice until the fucking car incident, and
He's going to be suspended for probably like half the year, probably. I would think.
yeah, if not, they're gonna give him at least a full year, and that's about as good as it's gonna be. But no, I think people overestimate these teams. It's like you do realize teams like the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, hell now probably even the Ravens, like yeah, these guys are explosive offensively, but their defenses are dog shit. Like they have no defense. I mean, the Ravens traded away half their defense this offseason. They lost Patrick Queen, they lost a few others, and their defense isn't as stacked as it once was. The Dolphins have no defense besides Xavier Howard, and he's okay, and he's in
Yeah,
trouble legally too.
yeah. He's getting
So,
older too.
and he's getting older. The Chiefs lost L'Jarius Sneed, and he's gone to Tennessee, like you said, and so their defense is crippled. So it's not, people forget that this isn't a league of just offense anymore. It's back to being a defensive. You have to have a good defense to win this league, and it's not so much of high-powered offenses. And you're trying to see the Vikings run with it with Jay Jettas and Sam Darnold. You're seeing the Bengals trying to do it with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow doesn't break his fucking arm or his knees anymore, but the Browns are building it old school again. The best O line in football, the best run game in football, and the top defense in football. That's all. That's the formula to winning, and the Browns are going to lead the league in sacks most likely. Myles Garrett probably can go for back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year awards and get a high sack percentage. I mean, it's just a recipe. Like, also too, the teams that I've just mentioned too have shit O lines too.
Yeah,
The
terrible.
Ravens terrible offensive line. The Bengals still don't know how to build an offensive line at all. The Chiefs' offensive line has gotten old and worse, and the Dolphins just never had one.
Yeah.
So I can't put into words like a lot of these games are favorable for the Browns, and
Even against the Cowboys, like we
yeah,
can win that game.
yeah, like cool.
Like
Their
it's at
defensive,
home.
yeah, their defensive player is who? Micah Parsons and Trevon Diggs.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it. Leighton Vander Esch can't stay on the field for more than 2 games because he
Well, I think
breaks every bone in his body.
I was about to say, I think he might have retired. I can't. I can't.
I think
remember.
he either left for another team or he retired
Yeah.
because he couldn't stay on the field for more than 3 games because
I know he kept destroying his neck.
he kept destroying his neck and his back. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, elite level linebacker, but holy shit, dude! Like
Yeah. And Micah
But-
is who he is too. Like Micah is he's a fantastic pass rusher.
he's a stud. Yeah,
He's one of the best pass rushers in the entire league. Period.
yeah,
And I think he's going to be the guy that if Miles doesn't win it, it's going to be Micah as as the defense player of the year because he's going to have a good year this year. But speaking on the offensive side of the ball for Dallas, like besides CD, they don't have a lot to
No,
really offer you.
their running
Their
back is
run,
horrible.
yeah, their run game is very mid. They just lost to what's his nuts. I mean, I think they signed back Zeke, but is that gonna matter for them? Probably not.
No,
Um, you
Zeke is
know,
washed at this point.
yeah, and it's like Dak is who he is, and Dak is a really good quarterback. But if you get him under pressure even slightly, he folds immediately, and
Yeah.
that's his biggest flaw. Is he's able to fold really quickly.
And their offensive
Um,
line isn't that great either.
Now they're getting old.
It's
They're getting
it's
older, and the guys that were good have had a lot of injuries and stuff. So yeah, they're not as good as they were too.
and the thing is, what bails a lot of these guys out is that they play in horrible divisions too. Like the Cowboys play in one of the worst divisions of football. The Chiefs play in one of the worst divisions of football. So it's so easy to make these guys as favorites against the Browns because they're like, oh, okay, the Cowboys win their division, the Chiefs win their division. I was like, yeah, but they play in the two worst divisions in all of the National Football League. Like, I would love to play in a fucking division where I have the Vegas Raiders, the Tennessee fucking, or no, not the Tennessee Titans, the Vegas Raiders, the Chargers, who are very fucking mid. You know, I would love these teams to play against year in and year out,
Yeah, twice a year.
twice a year. But no, we have to deal with the Bengals, the Steelers, the Ravens.
Yeah, we have the toughest division in football. Period. Like this is going to be another division, or at least another year in this division. Every team is going to win a minimum of eight to 10 games.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
And the thing is,
It's
Miami's not even going to come close to their division because the Colts are decent.
yeah,
The Titans are, well, they're still mediocre, but the Texans are going to be probably winning this division for the next however long, as long as CJ Stroud balls out the way he does. This is the Texans division to lose no matter what for the next 5 to 10 years or whatnot.
yeah.
The Colts are not that far behind,
No, they're not, and they're going to get better. I
and their
think
Colts are going to get better because Richardson's a solid quarterback. And
he is. I mean, he just got hurt last year, and they just
yeah,
decided to just shut him down real fast, which I think was smart because
yeah,
they
you don't want
still
to
competed
kill him.
with Minshew, but it
Yeah,
proved to them that like, hey, this quarterback is going to be the big difference. And then if you add another guy as a wide receiver or add more on defense, you're going to have a really good competitive team.
mm-hmm.
And I think they learned a lot about that. So yeah, this like that's going to be another tough division. But like yeah, there's a lot of divisions, especially on the NFC side of things. There are some weak divisions out there, man. Like just in
NFC West is
general.
NFC West is trash.
Yeah, the NFC West is all awful. The one, I think it might be the AFC South. I think is another bad
And
one.
NFC South, yeah. Well, the NFC South is like the Saints, the Bucks,
Yeah, that division's ass. All of them
yeah,
get
the
fucking
Panthers.
eight, 6 to 8 wins, and then you have one team that's got
I
two.
want I want to look at the NFL standings and see like what was the worst like division. So the worst division looks like it was. Let's see. Yeah, it was probably the NFC South because the Buccaneers and the Saints both went 9-8, then the Falcons 7-10, the Panthers 2-15.
Yeah,
Um, the NFC East still isn't good. It's still the Cowboys and the Eagles. The Giants and the Commanders are dog water. The NFC West, the Seahawks somehow finished 9-8. And then obviously the 49ers and the Rams were solid. And then the NFC North, it was basically just the Detroit Lions at 12-5, and the Packers at 9-8, and the Vikings and the Bears both at 7-10. So the NFC North was also kind of mid, besides the Detroit Lions. The best division was obviously the AFC North, where all the teams went above 500. The Ravens 13-4, the Browns 11-6, Steelers 10-7, Bengals 9-8. AFC South again, like I said, was solid. Texans at 10-7, Jags 9-8, Colts 9-8, Titans 6-11. The AFC West is horrible, and I think the AFC West is probably the worst division in football as well because the Chiefs 11-6, Raiders and Broncos 8-9, the Chargers 5-12, like awful. So again, when it comes to like these, people like picking like the Chiefs over the Browns, it's like, well, they play in the worst of us fucking division in football. Same with like the Dallas Cowboys, and he's like, oh, well, the Saints might be tough this year. Really? You really think they're going to be that tough? If they could win maybe 6 games, sure, 7 games, sure, they're going to
Yeah.
be a little scrappy little bunch, but they're not going to be overbearing. Like, as long as the defense does its job, that's a decent, sizable win for the Browns. So a lot of these teams that are quote unquote going to challenge the Browns aren't really that challenging in their own divisions. They're not challenging anything. They just, it's just the hatred towards the Cleveland Browns, really. That's all it is.
Yeah, it is. It's always annoying because
Yeah.
it's weird because I think the league is so much better when the Browns are good. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, everybody roots for a downfall. Like everybody, and it's so
Everybody.
funny.
The
It's so
only
funny.
one the only one who doesn't root for our downfall is Rich Eisen. Rich Eisen loves the Browns.
Yes, he does, and we love Rich Eisen.
We love Rich Eisen.
he's our boy, and
He
even
always
Good
backs
Morning.
us.
And honestly, the guys at Good Morning
Football.
Football, they're all pretty cool with us because obviously they got Burleson up there, and I know I forget the other dude's name, but I know he was always root for us. So usually I think when it comes to that though, it's just because people have their opinions about Watson, and that's fine. Like if you have a bad influence or just a bad perception of him, I get that because of all of the shit that is surrounded by him. I get that, but there's so many good people on this team that for me it's just so easy to really avoid and just say I don't really care about the player. I just care about the team. And if the player does well, then cool. Like that's what we want. That's why we got him. And if Watson can become anything like he was in Houston or better, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. This isn't a playoff team. This is a Super Bowl contending team.
Yep.
When Watson is absolutely on his shit, and he was 5-1 as a starter, so it's not like he was losing games just because he wasn't
No.
playing well. Doesn't mean that we were losing. He wasn't putting us in positions to lose. He was
Yeah.
he was winning us games. He literally carried us against the Ravens on a broken shoulder.
And
Like,
a high ankle sprain at the same
which
time.
which is not fun to deal with. If anybody has had a high ankle sprain, they know it sucks. So
And
again,
he talked about that too. He was in severe pain during that game too.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, this team really does have a lot of potential, and if we were in any other division, I think the media will speak a lot differently about us. But because we are in the AFC North, where we had 3 playoff teams out of the 4 teams in the division make it to the playoffs last year, 2 of which were wild card guys, that speaks volumes to where we're at, and that's fine because we always have the best competition. And I know our strength of schedule this year looks crazy, but it really doesn't. Like when you look at what teams did last year, and then you see what the roster that they're putting on for this year, the Chargers aren't going to be as good. Dallas could be good, but there's just a lot of teams that were good last year that aren't going to be as good this year because of who they lost or what they did with their roster, their coaching, whatever. And that's what people have to look at.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes, but I do agree. I think this team is a 12, potentially 13 win team if they can really get on their shit. And that's the potential. Now, do I see 10 games won, again? Yeah. I could see us winning 10 to 11 games. It's always been my sweet spot, and I will continue to say that. So we still got a lot of preseason to go, though. And that's the fun part, is we're going to continue to have more things to discuss. But to stick on the side of football things, some weird news came out this week. So some very weird, different news. Bernie KOSAR is suing BIGPLAY.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows about BIGPLAY, they know they've been probably one of the bigger Cleveland sort of media podcasts out there for the last few years. And I was a part of BIGPLAY back, I think, in 2016 or so. No, it was more like 2017, 18, somewhere around there, because I started with Cleveland Sports Talk. And the guy that owns Cleveland Sports Talk is a terrible human being. So I'm not even going to say his name, but just a really bad time over there. And so when we were with Big Play, it was cool at first. Like honestly, Big Play was the shit back in the day. Like we were popping. Our writing team, that was some of the best freaking times I think I've ever had. And I was still in college. I didn't even have I wasn't getting paid. And that's the big reason why I think a lot of people left Big Play was because they weren't getting paid. I don't know the extent of this law, of this lawsuit, but again, I know a lot of people in the scene for Big Play, and some of this stuff, I'm not gonna lie, I could have seen happen. It's weird.
Yeah.
What do you think about the current state of Big Play? Like, do you think this could be something that could heavily affect their audience, or just affects what they do, or do you think it's just going to kind of end up being brushed under, and it's not going to be that big a news?
I mean, I think this could be detrimental to Big Play just for the fact that this isn't a random ass player that we're talking about or a former player of the NFL that we're talking about. This is Bernie Kosar. This is a Browns legend. This is a top tier NFL quarterback in the 80s and 90s. One of the better quarterbacks of that generation. So this isn't some kind of small fry we're talking about. And obviously, the only things that we do know was Bernie Kosar had a podcast on Big Play, signed a contract with them. And apparently, in the contract, it stated that he had to make a sports bet. Now, I don't want to disclose like any of the dollar amounts and what the lawsuit was and whatnot. If you want, I don't want to go that deep into it because I don't want to ruin anybody's reputations and whatnot and hurt people. That's not what we're here to do. If you want to look it up, Google it, do whatever you want. We're not going to spew the numbers on here and make people look bad. That's not what we're about. But yeah, they apparently in the contract it forced Bernie Kosar to make a sports bet. And as we all know, Bernie Kosar, who still works alongside the NFL and with the NFL, does some Browns game days, and does media days with the NFL Network, stuff like that. Um, Again, it was a breach of that contract, and it led to Bernie Kosar being fired by the NFL. And according to Big Play, it wasn't going to hinder anything for Bernie Kosar. Like him making the bet wasn't going to, guarantee like anything or stuff like that. So, but the contract forced Bernie to make a bet, and all we had to say was a sizable bet,
Yeah.
and a very sizable bet. But I think this could hurt Big Play, especially with the amount that Bernie Kosar wants in the lawsuit. So, and Big Play probably, they just did get that TV deal, so that could help a little bit. But this could definitely affect that TV deal. This could affect a lot of their deals that they've had, a lot of their sponsorships that they have as well. This could be back to square one for Big Play in reality. And I don't want to hurt anyone on Big Play. Like they're all except for the one guy you mentioned, but I think everyone there is all great people. We know some of the people,
Yep.
but you know when you have these guys on your station or your podcast, the likes of like Josh Cribbs and the likes
Booby
of
Gibson.
Booby Gibson. A lot of these guys are still under contract with the NBA, the
Yeah.
NFL, and stuff. So you forcing them to bet on their contracts because you're sponsored by a betting company, you know, that's going to breach their other contracts and get them let go of all those. And they'll probably make more money on those deals than they do on the Big Play deal. So for you, especially to make sizable bets, that's not a good look. And this is like you said, this is the first time Big Play has been in situations like this before, where at the time you were there, they weren't paying writers, they weren't paying anybody. Like you guys were promised X amount of money per view on your articles and stuff, and you guys weren't getting paid, or you got paid very very little, if at all. So this I think if anything, this could hurt the reputation big time, which could be the downfall of Big Play. But I mean, we've seen things where nothing happens
Yeah.
after all this. You know, does Bernie get the money he's asked for and whatnot, and does it really hurt the company at all? And it's one of those things where we'll wait and see.
I mean, it could affect specifically Dave, who's more of the owner.
Yeah,
I don't know if it'll affect some of the other guys there because like McNeil
yeah,
is pretty much who he is. We all
yeah.
know McNeil and what his persona is on Twitter, and he's
Twitter,
always
yeah,
been a trolly guy and stuff. So like,
and he's a great
I don't.
guy.
Yeah. I mean, a McNeil like actually is a good dude.
Yeah, I mean, Neil's a
Um,
great guy. He's a
yeah,
great dude.
I went to school with Nick Padone. Like he literally graduated with me. Like I had classes with him at Kent State.
Yeah,
So I know him personally and I wrote with him. And I love Nick. Like I like a
great dude.
majority of those guys.
Yeah.
But it's weird how Big Play has kind of gone through a couple of of things. Like when they merged with CST,
Mm-hmm.
and Zach, the guy who owns CST, he basically left after like a week because he was like, I'm not getting paid shit for any of my articles. What the hell's going on now? Zach also like sabotaged the Twitter accounts and stuff, and pretty much like went back to square one. And the CST account had like a couple 100,000 followers on
Yeah.
I think,
It was a
and it
big, it
ended
was a
up
big account.
it was a very big account, and when he was with CCST, he was kind of in full control of posting, what was being posted, what was being written, and Big Play gave us a little bit more of leniency, but we also had an actual team. Like when I was with CST, it was basically Zach and then Rod, who I don't know if you've met Rod. Rod is
Rob
one of
Blue.
my yes, he is one
Yeah,
of my favorite human beings ever. That dude is a sweet man. He was awesome. He was the one that got me into the writing scene
okay.
originally, and I owe that man so much because he's just all freaking awesome. I've
See,
done a podcast with him. He's great.
I've never met him personally, but I know who he is, and I think we
Yes,
both
he's
follow
awesome.
each other on Twitter.
Yeah, he's awesome. So it was pretty much him and Zach that were like running the show, at
Yeah.
TST, and at the time Nick was being who he was, and like Nick went to cover the Super Bowl with CST.
Yeah.
I think it was
Very
the year
recently.
where, well, yeah, it was the first time they did that. I think was when the Patriots played the Falcons, because I think Hoyer was on that team, so they interviewed with Hoyer and stuff like that. Um, so he got to do that, and then as soon as he got to Big Play knew that he was going to be the guy to like start bringing on the pod, and he was going to be like a nice, personality. And dude, kudos to him. Like once he was able to like find his avenue there, he fucking stuck with it, and that's what you got to do with opportunities like that. And he's been with them ever since, and you know, guys like that are the reason why Big Play is better,
Yeah.
and why it has been what it is. But yeah, when it goes back to Dave and just all of the stuff, I mean, I wrote, I think it was like around like 9 or 10 articles. I forget. It might have been more. It might have been less. Like I said, I can't even view the articles anymore because I think the old website is down, or they just redid it. And I think they could have gotten rid of the articles. I don't know, but I had a couple different like articles that reached around 1,000 views. Like I know I had one where I was like, at the time the Indians were struggling, Lindor was still there, Ramirez was struggling, like a lot of guys were struggling, and I was like, it's time to shake things up. And Dave had shared it on his account, and it blew up. Like it got over 1,000 views in like a matter of like 24 hours. It was pretty sick. And I remember I think that article was a majority of the money that I made. I only made like $9 or $10 total on the stuff that I wrote. And again, I wrote quite a few articles. The last few articles that I wrote, I was kind of forced to write because they wanted to cover the NBA draft at the time. So I had covered a few different teams as like draft picks and put like a quick post out. And
Mhm.
then they wanted me to cover the Bengals, which I did not want to do. I had to write an article at the time when the Bengals had like, I think it was the first year they had Burrow, and I had to write an article basically making my case as to how the Bengals were going to win the AFC North that year, and the Steelers and the Ravens were going to be the top teams, easily. And I had to write that, and that was one of the toughest articles I think I've ever had to write, and I got so much flack for it too. Like there would be people, I've even gotten people still to this day that will be like, "He wrote an article about the Bengals winning the AFC North back in 2018. What are you, an idiot?" And I was like, "I was forced to write that. I'm sorry. Like I can't help what I had to do." So like I said, it was a fun time, but like this isn't the first case of big play. I'm not going to say screwing people over, but they always seem to have some sort of issues with certain people. I know a guy behind the scenes that had a lot of issues with them, and I'm not even going to speak about that because that's not my place, but it sucks. Like, it always sucks when you see these media teams that have been doing well in the Cleveland sports scene for so long
Hurt
have these.
themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much hurt themselves again. So, I hope for the sake of the guys that I like, over there that show doesn't get canceled or anything. But it's also Bernie, and Bernie is very beloved here. And I think if fans are going to side with one or the other, they're going to side with Bernie. Like it's not even going to be a contest. So we'll see what happens, but it is interesting. It's some weird news. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. It was the weirdest news I think I heard all week because I was like, where the hell did this come from? Like, what? How did that
Yeah.
happen? And then I
Yeah,
looked at the
no.
whole thing and I was like, whoa, there was a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, no, it was bizarre because I really didn't know about it until you told me before we started the pod of what happened. And when I saw the article of Bernie suing, because it's on. If you want to look at the article, it's written by Pro Football Talk on NBC.
Mhm.
Um, so if you want to look at it, look up NBC Pro Football Talk. It's on there, the article at least, and just like looking at the amounts and stuff like that, it's so fucking wild. And you know, like we said, we like big play. We know a lot of the guys over there. We like a lot of the guys over there. Dave, eh, um, but no, we like a lot of the people over there, and we have no issues with them. And this is just one of those things where the owners of Big Play, Dave, and whoever else, fucked up when making these contracts. You know, you can't have professional athletes or former professional athletes have podcasts and then make them do something against their other contracts and and not expect something like this to happen and just walk away. So again, I have no problems with them. Like a lot of the guys, like you said, Nick Padone is a good friend of ours. Um, I've hung out with him before and talked with him before and stuff like that. So great guy, but you know, and we don't know what's going to happen to them after this lawsuit. If it's going to hurt them badly or if it's going to not really matter and things blow over and things are okay. So, we would love to have some of those guys on our podcast soon and just to have conversations and talk sports and just be grown adults and talk sports. But you know, we'll see what happens, and hopefully everything goes okay for both people because obviously Bernie deserves his what he deserves his contract with the NFL back, and you know again beloved Cleveland guy, and hopefully Big Play will end up being okay afterwards. So even if Bernie does win, so
Yeah, I
again
mean,
we'll see.
I assume there's just gonna be some sort of settlement and it's gonna be
Yeah,
chill. I think Bernie's just doing this because I mean, he got screwed over. I mean,
he did.
he literally made that bet, and then the following day the Browns fired him. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't even 24 hours, and the Browns were like, "Yeah, nope," and we're like, "Uh-oh, what
yeah,
happened?"
yeah, and
And that's
they
what
know they
happened.
can't have that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and because the thing is, if they didn't fire Bernie, it was going to come back on the Browns,
yeah.
and the
Like, oh
Browns
well,
probably.
like you knew about this and like you were involved, so then the Browns would get fined. And like, oh no, we're not a part of shit. Get him out of
Yeah,
here.
it probably was no less than an hour too if they fired him or
Oh
anything.
yeah.
They probably saw it immediately and said, "Yeah, you're gotta go, chief." So
And like I don't even know if Bernie necessarily knew what he was doing at the time. Like I don't think he realized like how that would be. But just hearing about like him getting like berated and like almost like verbally bullied to like
mhm.
do some of these things, I was like, man, I don't know if I necessarily believe that specifically, but if true, that's kind of fucked up because Bernie's a really
Yeah.
nice dude. So like,
And why would you do that to a guy who's super nice and is probably one of the biggest, besides LeBron James, is one of the biggest Cleveland figures.
right, like way to ruin your audience, man. Like that's not what you want to do there.
And
So
that's the thing; they're probably gonna lose a lot of audience because of it.
yeah, they might. I mean, they definitely might, and
Especially their
that's
older audience too, the ones who watched Bernie Kosar, they're gonna lose a lot of those people.
right. So I mean, we'll see what head like what ultimately does happen, but it is a little scary and it is a little weird. And I hope that guys like Nick and stuff like they're not worried about all that,
Hmm.
about their current state and in big play because I mean he still has a lot more going for himself and he could easily probably branch off and do something completely on his own and be fine.
Well, he still
But
does commercials and whatnot too,
yeah,
and
and he still
so
works with Jack.
yeah,
Because he had that podcast with Phil with Phil Taylor.
yeah,
Another kid, I forget. I think his name's Keaton or something. I think that's what his name is. Uh, but they all worked with Jack, and they all did a lot of stuff
mhm.
on that podcast. So Nick's always had his hand in like three different jars. So I know that kid is going to be fine, and he's established himself enough to where he could get himself a radio gig or whatever he wants to do, and he would be fine.
Yeah,
But
100%.
so hopefully that doesn't do anything to them. But we did want to go over some like Guardians talk and stuff today, but we're already an hour and 6 minutes in, so I'm not really going to worry about that. The Guardians obviously lost yesterday, 4-2. Bybee had a good start, but ultimately still gave up 4 runs. So that sucks. And then there's also some talk about Mitchell and Mobley potentially getting extensions. So hopefully next week we will have some more word on that. Hopefully the Cavs actually get themselves a head coach because I'm tired of waiting around. I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but I'm
I
tired.
am.
I'm really tired of waiting around because you got to get ready for the draft here soon. The draft is coming up rapidly quick. And so the finals are getting ready to end. The Mavs are down 3-0, so we were really off on our prediction, which is going to happen. But Luka looks like a literal cone out there on defense. Like he can't do anything uh, against this Celtics. So it looks like the Celtics will probably 4-0 them at this point because Luka I think is hurt too. It's just a weird series. Like this was a weird series. Um, I don't know if you have
Um,
anything else to add.
yeah,
Add to that.
the NBA draft is on the 26th, so in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, we're
So
getting there.
so basically 2 weeks to the day is the NBA draft. Um, so hopefully the Cavs have a. I think it's straight just down to two candidates. I think they're down to just Kenny Atkinson and James Borrego, and I think they're liking Borrego a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I can see why, because if you look at the stats between Atkinson and Borrego, Atkinson, over the years would downtrend in games won and stuff like that, while Borrego would uptick, and they all saw better development under Borrego than Kenny Atkinson. So
Yeah.
it seems like Borrego is the clear favorite, and again, it might be the guy that Mitchell wanted, and Mitchell said, "Hey, I like this guy a lot. Let's get him." So, but yeah, we need a coach 2 weeks until the draft, and you would want a head coach by the draft. So I'm sure we'll get some head coaching stuff within next week or hopefully a couple days before the draft.
Oh yeah.
And we're set in stone, and we can talk about that. And yeah, we'll get some more guards talk. Guards again lost last night. Bybee great outing, just way too late being taken out by Stephen Vogt. So very unfortunate. The time he did get taken out, he just gave up a 2-run homer to make it 4-2, and that was the final score. Um, but again, it's not so much his fault; it's the fault of the coaching staff not pulling him out a little bit sooner than that. And yeah, they play Toronto starting tomorrow through Sunday. Then they're back home starting Tuesday. So
Yeah.
gotta keep rolling.
Hopefully our GM is starting to talk with Toronto's GM and saying, "Hey, you guys got some
Pitcher,
pitchers.
that we can
Do you
borrow?
guys want to give us one? We'll give
Yeah.
you whoever the fuck we give. I'll give up Miles Straw. I don't care.
Honestly, and you know what's funny? They talked about that. I think it was on UCSS. Who has the worst
Oh my
contract?
God!
Was it like
Stop.
what was it like Jack Conklin or Miles Straw who has the worst contract?
All right.
Which hey, it's a good topic to discuss. Who does have the worst contract? I would say Miles Straw.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we will hopefully have more to discuss besides Browns. Obviously with mini camp going around, we got to get back into football. But yeah, more. Hopefully, some more basketball news, some more Gatos talk, and who knows? We might even get a update on the lawsuit. So we'll see what happens for next week. But we will see you guys next week with episode 39, almost 40. See you guys next week.